Engaged to a duchess, he discovered an amazing love in the rain that changed everything forever. Jake Thompson had always known the weight of responsibility. In the small Midwestern town of Cedar Falls, he was a mechanic, that hard-working soul who kept the wheels of life turning, yet he felt like he was treading water, yearning for something more. His days were spent in his father's garage, addressing the engine growls of visiting cars while his heart pulsed against the confines of family obligation. Blue skies had once symbolized his dreams of opening his own shop, but now they were shrouded beneath the clouds of his father's illness, heavy and foreboding. One rainy afternoon, as the storm darkened the horizon, Jake tightened the last bolt on an old pickup. The raindrops tapped at the roof like a persistent drum. Just as he wiped the sweat from his brow, the garage door creaked open, and in walked Lady Amelia Sinclair, her presence illuminated by a flash of lightning. She was breathtaking, with hair like spun gold and eyes that sparkled like the summer sky even in the dreary weather. "Is this your sanctuary from the storm?" She chuckled, shaking droplets from her umbrella. Jake's laughter rang out, surprising himself. "You'd be surprised what we call sanctuary around here." In that moment, the weight of his burdens lifted, if only for a heartbeat. Their connection was immediate, an unexpected spark in the dim light of the garage. As they exchanged stories, Jake felt raw and alive, the kind of human warmth he rarely encountered. He learned about Amelia's privileged life, filled with galas and titles, and she marveled at his simple joys of fixing engines and the family values shaped by the rugged hands of his father. In the midst of a storm, they found shelter not just from the rain, but from the loneliness that so often surrounded them. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet, as their laughter faded and reality crept back in, the gap widened. What they had was thrilling, but it was turbulent against the backdrop of Amelia's aristocratic lineage. Whispers from the townsfolk cast shadows over their budding romance. Every encounter outside the garage felt charged, dangerous, as if love itself was a battlefield where they were combatants. Amelia's family would never approve. Jake could feel the tension pull taut like a string about to snap. Should he cling to the security of his familiar world, or dare to dive deeper into this ephemeral love that set his heart racing? He wrestled with the decision, especially after receiving a call that his father's condition had worsened. Torn between his dreams and loyalty, he stood by the battered car in the garage, drenched in uncertainty. As rain poured down around him that evening, the storm outside a perfect reflection of his turmoil, Jake took a deep breath. He was about to make a heart-wrenching choice that he believed could unite their worlds and secure their future together. But before he could act, shadows from Amelia's past danced across his mind, and just as clarity emerged, they threatened to shatter everything. Would their love endure the ultimate test? Jake's heart raced as he ventured outside, drenched and determined, ready to confront whatever storm awaited him. The rain continued to fall in thick sheets, each drop a reminder of the chaos swirling inside Jake's heart. The world around him felt muted, the sounds of the storm merging with the thumping of his pulse. He glanced back at the garage, the place that had always represented stability but now felt like a prison. His father's health hung precariously in the balance, a full moon looming over a sky of uncertainty. With each step he took toward Amelia's South family estate, Jake couldn't shake the flicker of doubt. What if she were simply a fleeting dream? A bright spark before he returned to a life heavy with obligations and familial duty? It was hard to imagine a future that included Amelia standing by his side, yet the thought of losing her twisted his stomach into knots. When he reached the gates, they loomed tall and intimidating, each intricate iron design revealing the opulence of aristocracy. He hesitated, rain soaking through his clothes, as he wrestled with the thoughts dancing in his mind. Would they even let him in? He was Jake Thompson, a mechanic from Cedar Falls. Could he ever be worthy of the daughter of a duke? Before he could lose his nerve, he pushed open the gate, the creak echoing into the void around him. The estate was magnificent, towering and grand, yet devoid of warmth. A mansion where laughter was replaced by whispers and scornful glances, he felt utterly out of place. But when he spotted Amelia at the far end of the garden, he felt a surge of hope. Even through the storm, she stood like a beacon of light. "Amelia!" he called, his voice breaking through the rain. She turned, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. She rushed toward him, soaking her elegant dress, and the sight electrified him. "Jake! What are you doing here?" she asked, breathless. "I had to see you," Jake replied, pulling her into a tight embrace despite their surroundings. The warmth of her body against his made everything else fade away. "I'm worried about my dad, but I'm more worried about you. I don't want to hide this, what we have. Not anymore." Amelia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "But Jake, my family, let us not think about them right now," he interrupted. "Let us just think about us." She pulled back slightly, searching his face. Despite the rain-soaked chaos around them, they stood still, suspended in a moment so fragile yet powerful. "I wish it were that simple," she whispered, anguish coating her words. "They'll never accept you." "Then let us fight for it," he urged, the words spilling out before he could second-guess himself. "I can't walk away from this." Her fingers trembled against his cheek as she searched his eyes, desperation mingling with affection. "What if we're torn apart?" Jake's heart sank, the reality of her fears crashing into him like the relentless rain. "Then we find a way to come back together. I'm not backing down. Not from you." His resolve felt like a shield against the uncertainty, as if their connection could withstand the hurricane swirling around them. The sky rumbled a warning above, yet neither of them moved. As the storm raged on, a flicker of understanding ignited in Amelia's expression. "Then we have to talk to my father. We have to face him." Jake's breath caught in his throat. The stakes had never felt so high. Would her father's fierce legacy extinguish the flame they had ignited? The question loomed, heavy with consequence. With a nod, they agreed silently. Together, they would take that next step into the unknown, hand in hand. But as they turned to face the mansion, a figure emerged from the shadows, a storm of its own brewing in his darkened gaze. "What are you doing here?" the man demanded, his voice cutting through the storm like a knife. Jake's heart raced. Who was this, and how would he change everything? Jake's heart thudded in his chest, each beat a drumroll for the confrontation about to unfold. The man stepping out of the darkness was tall, with a sharp jawline and eyes that carried the weight of authority. A shiver ran down Jake's spine. He realized this had to be Amelia's father, the Duke. "Father," Amelia said, her voice trembling, her grip on Jake tightening as if he could ground her. "Is this how you waste your time, Amelia? In this pathetic weather, with someone beneath us?" The Duke eyed Jake with disdain. "Not beneath us, father," Amelia snapped, her fiery spirit igniting. "Jake is not a pathetic anything. He is brave, he is good, and he cares about me." Jake felt a swell of pride at her defense but also fear. How could he possibly explain himself to this man? All of his insecurities threatened to bubble over. "The daughter of a duke doesn't get to choose her future based on a whim," the Duke sneered, stepping closer. "You have obligations to uphold." Amelia shot Jake a glance filled with hope and determination. "And I'm choosing you, Dad. I'm choosing this." "Amelia," the Duke said, his tone turning slightly softer but still firm. "What do you even know about this man?" Jake didn't want to cower. Instead, he stepped forward, his heart racing. "I know that I love her. I may not come from your world, sir, but I care for Amelia, and I want to take care of her." The Duke's brows furrowed, and Jake braced for the onslaught that often accompanied words spoken without the right pedigree. But the moment of silence felt pregnant with tension. Rain continued to lash down around them, drowning out the rest of the world. You think love is all that matters? The Duke said slowly, his voice heavy with skepticism. My family has worked to build a reputation, a legacy. You think a few sweet words will change centuries of tradition? The wind howled, almost as if mocking Jake's naivety. But in that moment, he remembered his father's fight against illness, his family's struggle to maintain dignity amid crumbling health. I understand legacy, Your Grace. I'm not asking you to forget it, simply to see that love can reshape what legacy means. A flicker of surprise darted across the Duke's face. It startled Jake, making him wonder if perhaps he'd pierced through the Duke's steely armor for the briefest of moments. Love? The Duke's expression hardened again. If love were all it took, everyone would have it. What makes you think you're worthy of Amelia? I've earned everything I have through hard work, Jake replied, fighting to steady his voice. I might not have your wealth or your title, but I know loyalty, sacrifice, and how to love fiercely. Isn't that what truly counts? A silence fell between them, heavy with the pounding rain. The intensity of the moment felt electric, like peering into the abyss yet drawing strength from one another. He could feel Amelia's warmth beside him, grounding him. Love is a risk, the Duke finally said, his voice cold but thoughtful. And risks can lead to downfall. But they can also lead to great joy, Jake countered, feeling a spark of courage light within him. The Duke looked at his daughter, searching her face. Was there a hint of concern? A flicker of understanding? The tension thickened the air around them. Just then, a clap of thunder echoed across the estate as if the universe were weighing in on this monumental moment. Amelia squeezed Jake's hand tighter, her eyes pleading for her father's acceptance. Dad, please. Her voice was soft, vulnerable. The Duke stood like a granite statue, unmoving. I will determine your worth, young man. And it won't be based on what you say today. Jake's heart sank. He hadn't won the moment. The fight was far from over. But his gaze met Amelia's, and he could feel the tide of bravery swelling inside him. Then I will show you, Jake declared. The Duke turned away, dismissing them both. We'll see. As the door to the mansion closed, Jake and Amelia stood in silence, the weight of uncertainty heavy in the air. Would they have the strength to continue this fight? The storm built around them, but deep down, they knew the next chapter of their battle was just beginning, and as they turned to leave, something shifted on the horizon, something darker than the clouds that loomed above. Jake's pulse quickened again, sensing that this confrontation was only a prelude to even greater challenges ahead. What storm awaited them in the shadows? As they walked away from the towering mansion, Jake felt the chill seep deeper into his bones. The rain was relentless, pounding against him like a fading reminder of the confrontation. But he wasn't just feeling cold, he was determined. Amelia's soft whimper beside him was a constant reminder of what was at stake. They were in this together. Amelia's voice trembled, breaking the heavy silence. I didn't mean to put you in that position. I thought, hey, he interrupted gently, turning to face her. Her eyes glistened like wet stones in the dim light. You stood up for us. That's what matters. He felt a warmth rush over him at the thought of her defending him, her spirit shining through the storm. But my father, she sighed, her shoulders slumping. He'll make this so hard. Maybe, Jake said, shaking his head. But we can't back down now. We have to find a way. They continued walking, side by side, their fingers intertwined like a promise, battling the rain and their uncertainty. Every step felt like a rebellion against the Duke's rigid expectations. But Jake could feel it, this was only the beginning. They were stepping into something that would change them both, for better or worse. Suddenly, a rumble of thunder rolled overhead, and a flash of lightning illuminated Amelia's face, showing the worry etched in her features. What if he never accepts us? She whispered, her voice quaking under the weight of potential rejection. Jake stopped. He took a deep breath, searching for the right words, words that felt honest. Amelia, I can't control what he thinks. But I can promise you this: no matter what happens, I'll be here. You're not in this alone. The sincerity in his voice made her pause. Tears formed in her eyes, but this time they weren't just from fear, they were mixed with something else: hope, maybe. I love you, Jake. I just want to fight for what we have, she said, trembling. The way she looked at him made his heart pound faster. I love you too, Jake replied, feeling the truth of his words spark within him. More than anything. The rain began to lighten, the storm feeling less oppressive somehow. They reached a small bench tucked under a great oak tree, their refuge from the chaos that raged around them. As they sat, the pounding rain began to ease into a gentle patter. It felt like a moment of reprieve, a deep breath before the plunge. What's the plan now? Amelia asked, her eyes scanning Jake's face, searching for a glimmer of foresight. I don't know yet, he admitted, leaning back, allowing the damp wood to cool his skin. But we need to show him we're serious. Maybe I should find a way to prove my worth. She shifted closer, their legs brushing together. You already are proving it, Jake. Every time you stand up for us. But can we really change his mind? That's the goal. He gazed down the road, flicking through possibilities in his mind. We'll figure it out. Together. Maybe get the Duke to see what real love looks like, a love that defies titles and expectations. But Amelia hesitated, her brow furrowing. What if it's not enough? Then we will find a way to make it enough, he insisted, meeting her gaze with conviction. His resolve deepened, a flame igniting within him. A distraction flickered in the distance, a figure approaching through the mist. It was like the storm had conjured someone from the shadows. Jake squinted, trying to make out who it was. As the silhouette grew closer, his heart dropped. It was a familiar figure he never wanted to confront again. What now? Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The looming figure stepped into the light. Jake felt dread wash over him. How on earth they would deal with this new challenge? Jake, Amelia, came the voice, sharp and cutting. The storm in Jake's heart roared back to life as he faced whatever fate had now decided to throw at them. The figure drew closer, and Jake's breath hitched, constricting in his throat. It was Samuel, the Duke's right-hand man, always lurking in the shadows like a hawk waiting for its prey. Jake had hoped he would never see that smug expression again, especially not now when he felt so vulnerable. Jake, Samuel said, his voice dripping with condescension. I see you've made quite the scene tonight. He glanced at Amelia with an air of superiority. And with Miss Amelia, no less. This will not end well for you. Jake felt a surge of anger ripple through him. He didn't want Samuel to ruin the moment they had just shared. What do you want, Samuel? He shot back, his voice flat but laced with defiance. Amelia instinctively tightened her grip on Jake's hand, as if sensing the tension coiling between them. She looked to Jake, her expression torn between fear and determination. They were standing on a precipice, and Samuel was doing everything he could to push them off. Oh, just a friendly warning. The Duke has eyes everywhere. Samuel smirked, pushing his glasses up with a slow, deliberate motion. He's not going to let this little dalliance continue. You'll have to make a choice soon, and believe me, his wrath is something you don't want to provoke. Summoning all his courage, Jake stepped closer to Samuel, ignoring the warning bells ringing in his head. He couldn't let this man intimidate him. I know what I want. I want Amelia. Nothing will change that. The flicker of disbelief in Samuel's eyes was almost satisfying, but Jake quickly realized that beneath that smirk lay a hunter at work, one who would make this battle of love cost not only their hearts but perhaps their very positions in life. Bold words for a man of your background, Samuel sneered, his voice lowering. Are you prepared to face the consequences? The Duke does not tolerate disobedience. Jake's heart raced. Was it wrong to feel brave when the stakes were so high? I'm not afraid of him, he challenged, even as self-doubt crept into his mind. Samuel's smile faded. Think carefully, Jake. The Duke won't just dismiss you, he'll crush you. It would be wise for you to leave Amelia behind and protect yourself. Amelia gasped softly, her fear palpable. Jake turned to her, catching the glimmer of resilience behind her bright eyes. He knew she'd never choose safety over love, just as he wouldn't. But the weight of Samuel's words loomed large. What kind of future are we fighting for if it means turning our backs on everything? Amelia asked, her voice barely a whisper, yet strong enough to anchor Jake amidst the turbulence. Samuel took a step back, revealing a sly smile. I'll let you think about it. Just remember, the door to the Duke's approval swings both ways. You might find it locked on the other side. With that, he turned on his heel, disappearing back into the curtain of rain, leaving a heaviness that settled around them like fog. Jake felt the weight of everything crashing down, graphically painting their possible futures in darker hues. It was one thing to declare love, it was entirely another to navigate a treacherous world that wanted to tear them apart. Amelia spoke again, her voice carrying both fear and hope. What do we do now? He took a deep breath, clutching her hand tightly. The warmth from their connection was a burst of light in the storm, but uncertainty pressed against them like the rain that fell. We need a plan, but first, we need to trust in each other. Their hearts thudded in the rhythm of shared resolve, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling of doubt settling in the pit of his stomach. Outside forces were moving, and they only had so much time before they would be forced to make a decision that could shatter their fragile world. What if we're already too late? Amelia asked, her voice trembling. Jake looked into her eyes, determination igniting inside him. We're not. Not as long as we fight for us. But we need to act fast. They exchanged a knowing glance, understanding that the next step would shape their future. As they walked away from the oak tree, the rain began to cease, leaving a heavy mist behind. The path ahead was murky, but they had each other. Would they have the courage to face the Duke, or would they lose everything they held dear? Jake and Amelia walked in silence, their fingers intertwined, feeling the remnants of the storm in the air. The mist hung thick, a veil that wrapped around them, blurring the world outside and allowing them to cocoon themselves in their thoughts. Each step felt heavy, burdened with uncertainty, but also electrified with hope. What if we went to the city? Amelia suggested suddenly, her voice breaking the quiet. I mean, just us. We could find a way to start fresh, away from all this. She waved her free hand as if to dismiss the looming threat of the Duke and Samuel. Jake pondered her words. Leaving their lives behind sounded tempting, but the idea of abandoning everything they'd fought for gnawed at him. Running won't solve our problems. We can't just flee. I'm not suggesting we abandon everything. Just give ourselves a chance to breathe, she said, her eyes shining with that fierce determination that always drew him in. I know we don't have much time, but maybe we can figure something out before facing the Duke. For a fleeting moment, Jake considered it. They could be free from judgment, expectations, and danger. But the image of the Duke's fury loomed in the back of his mind. What about your family, Amelia? What would they think? They've never understood me, she said, pulling him closer. But we want each other. Isn't that worth fighting for? Her words struck deep. As the gentle mist caressed their skin, he felt the truth in her plea. Maybe love was worth every risk. But the stakes were high. Would expressing that love put Amelia in a line of fire she couldn't escape from? Before he could voice his concerns, a sudden commotion broke through the mist. A group of men emerged in the distance, their faces shadowed under wide-brimmed hats. Jake felt a shift in the atmosphere, his muscles tensed instinctively. What is that? Amelia whispered, her grip tightening around his fingers. Stay close to me, Jake warned, moving protectively in front of her. The men moved with purpose, their boots squelching against the ground, creating a rhythm that sent a chill down his spine. He could see Samuel's shadow slip among them, casting a dark pall over the moment. Samuel! Jake shouted, his voice echoing in the fog. What do you want? Samuel turned, his grin visible even in the gloom. Just a friendly reminder, Jake. The Duke doesn't take kindly to disobedience. I hope you've made your choice. The men flanked him, eyes cold and calculating. They weren't just looking for a warning. They were a promise of punishment, and his heart raced with urgency. What are you going to do? Amelia's voice trembled slightly, fear lacing her tone as she watched the men approach. Listen to me, Jake said, his voice steady, whatever happens, stay back. You must promise me. But Amelia stepped forward, defiance sparking in her eyes. I won't let you handle this alone. We started this together, and we'll finish it together. Jake's heart thumped loudly in his chest. He could feel the air thicken, the space around them charged with tension. What if standing together meant inviting pain? With every fiber of his being, he wanted to shield her from harm, but he also knew that their love was the very essence that propelled them forward. Would their love hold strong against the looming darkness? Then let us make it count, he said, his resolve locking in. They both turned to face Samuel and his men. Together, they whispered in unison, bravery mingling with dread, ready to confront their fate. But would their defiance be enough to change the course of their lives forever? The fog twisted around them like an ominous embrace, thickening their pulse as they faced Samuel and his men. Each shadowed figure seemed to loom larger than life, their intentions written in the predatory glint of their eyes. Jake drew in a breath, determined to shield Amelia from the storm brewing ahead. Back off, Samuel! Jake shouted, his voice steady but strained, like a taut string before it snaps. We're not afraid of you or your threats. Samuel laughed, the sound echoing mockingly in the damp air. Oh, but you should be, Jake. Fighting back changed the Duchess' plans. You're playing with fire, and I'm not the only one who'll get burned. He gestured to the men beside him. These are not the kind of friends you want to make enemies of. Amelia's grip on Jake tightened, her courage flickering like a candle caught in the wind. Jake could see her steely determination, but he could also see the fear creeping in. Don't let him intimidate you, he urged softly, willing her to draw strength from him. We have each other, and that matters more than anything. Enough of this love story, Samuel interrupted, stepping forward with a predatory gleam. We don't have time for that sweet sentimental stuff. It's time for choices, and yours is long overdue. The men behind him shifted, their posture menacing, as if waiting for a signal to strike. Jake steadied himself, heart racing, feeling Amelia's heartbeat matching his own. They were locked in their own world, a pocket of resistance against the chaos unfolding around them. What if we make a deal? Jake asked, husking the words out, trying to buy time. If Amelia's love was worth fighting for, then perhaps he could negotiate a pause in the impending storm. Samuel raised an eyebrow, intrigued. A deal? You think you've got something I want? Amelia turned to him, eyes wide, panic lurking beneath her resolve. Jake, hear me out, Jared said, cutting through the tension, focusing on Samuel. If you give us time, just a little time, we can find a way to resolve this without bloodshed. Bloodshed is inevitable if you continue to defy the Duke, Samuel hissed, his tone low and dangerous. But I do enjoy a good negotiation. Let us say I agree. What will you give me in return? Jake felt desperation kick in. Amelia is worth more than any deal you can imagine. She has my loyalty, and we could find a way to show the Duke we aren't a threat. Let us prove that. The silence hung heavy in the air, creating a window of opportunity just long enough for hope to flicker once more. But Samuel's expression darkened, a flash of malice behind his eyes. You're foolish to think you can sway the Duke. He doesn't care for loyalty. He cares for power. Then let us find out what he really values. Jake shouted, the heat of anger rising in him. I want to let you use fear to control our lives. Bold words for someone standing in the dark, Samuel retorted, his grin returning. This is just the beginning, Jake. The Duke has eyes and ears everywhere. You can't escape this. As Samuel retreated a few steps, motioning for his men to follow, Jake felt a mix of relief and dread. They were still standing, but for how long? And what would the Duke's influence bring upon them next? They watched Samuel disappear into the mist, and reality crashed back in. Jake turned to Amelia, his heart in his throat. Are you okay? She nodded, but he could see her fear, a shadow flickering across her face. What now? We can't let them go. They will come after us again. Jake felt the weight of the world pressing on him. He had to make a decision, and it had to be the right one. Let us find a way to turn the tide, he urged, determination igniting in his chest. We can't back down. Not now. But as fear mixed with hope, he couldn't shake the feeling that this fight was only leading them into something darker. Together, he whispered, hoping to combat the shadows that loomed closer even as they stood strong. But deep down, Jake knew sometimes the most dangerous battles were the ones fought in the dark corners of the heart. The night deepened, the shadows stretching along the cobblestone streets as Jake and Amelia found themselves in a tightening vice of uncertainty. They started walking, instinctively heading towards the shelter of the nearby woods, hoping the trees could shield them from prying eyes. Each crunch of the fallen leaves echoed like the beating of Jake's heart, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. Where are we going? Amelia whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips. To the old cabin, Jake replied, his mind racing. It was a place they had visited as kids, a sanctuary filled with memories. Maybe it could anchor them now that as they reached the edge of the trees, a sudden chill brushed against their skin. Jake glanced around, the silence amplifying his sense of foreboding. Every shadow felt alive. Stay close, he urged, scanning the darkness. Minutes passed as they traversed the familiar path, the air thick with tension. Jake could feel Amelia's apprehension rise with each step. He wished he could alleviate her fears, but the weight of their situation pressed heavily upon him. Once we're in the cabin, we can think, he assured her. We'll come up with a plan. When the cabin finally came into view, an overwhelming sense of nostalgia washed over him. The little building stood surrounded by gnarled trees, its old windows appearing like tired eyes peering into the night. But it wasn't just nostalgia that tugged at him, it was the bittersweet reminder of simpler times. They stepped inside, the door creaking like a whisper from the past. Dust motes danced in the thin beams of moonlight filtering through the cracks. Jake took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions. He turned to Amelia, who looked pale against the dim light. You've got to be brave, Amelia, he said, his heart swelling with fierce protectiveness. We'll find a way out of this together. But Amelia didn't respond. Instead, she stepped toward the window, her gaze lost in the distance. Jake, what if we can't? Her voice trembled, as if the very question threatened to crumble their resolve. He walked to her side, lifting her chin gently with his fingers. We will. Jake tried to project courage he wasn't sure he felt. We're stronger than they think. We've survived worse. She nodded slowly, though the flicker of doubt still danced in her eyes. Then, without warning, a figure emerged from the trees, the very shadow they feared. That it was Jared. Jake! He shouted, bursting into the clearing. You have to listen. I've heard things, awful things. His breath came in ragged gasps, and panic etched across his face. What did you find out? Jake's heart raced, the urgency of the moment electrifying the air. Jared hesitated, his gaze darting from Jake to Amelia. They're planning something big, something that could change everything. If we don't act now, if you don't confront the Duke. Amelia's voice shook with disbelief. Are you serious? But before Jared could answer, the night air shifted. A low growl rumbled in the distance, a sound that vibrated through Jake's bones. They weren't alone. Get inside. He shouted, fear clawing up his spine. We need to hide. With adrenaline coursing through him, he ushered Amelia and Jared into the cabin as the growling turned to barking, echoing through the trees, getting louder, closer. Whatever was chasing them was drawing near. As they huddled together in the dim light, dread coiled tightly in Jake's chest, mingling with a fierce, unyielding determination. Time was slipping away, and the chase was just beginning. Jake, Amelia whispered, her eyes wide with terror. In that moment, he realized that their fate was more intertwined than he had ever imagined. They weren't just fighting for their lives, but for a future. They dreamed of a future that felt more fragile by the moment. Outside, the sounds escalated, and Jake braced himself for what lay ahead. Could they really face the Duke? Could they discover the true power of their love? A primal instinct surged within him, igniting every fiber of his being. They had to make a stand, not just for themselves, but for something much greater. Get ready, he murmured to Amelia and Jared. This fight isn't over, not by a long shot. As Jake peered into the shadows outside, a single thought blazed in his mind: the true battle wasn't just against the Duke, but to protect the heart of what mattered most. And with that realization, a new path unfurled before them. What awaited beyond the cabin walls when they finally stepped out? The air inside the cabin felt charged, as if every heartbeat echoed the urgency outside. Jake leaned against the cool wooden wall, listening intently, every growl and bark sending shivers down his spine. The shadows outside danced violently, and the lingering scent of damp earth filled his nostrils, mingling with the potent mix of fear and determination. Do you think they've found us? Amelia's voice broke through Jake's reverie, trembling with unease. I don't know. Jake replied, his own uncertainty creeping into his tone. We need to stay quiet. Jared, his eyes wide with fear, clutched the edge of a rickety chair, knuckles white. We have to do something. We can't just sit here. The panic was palpable, rising like a wave ready to crash. Jake took a step forward, his pulse racing. We need a plan. First, let's figure out if we can see what's out there. Cautiously, he moved toward the broken window, eyes scanning the perimeter. The moonlight illuminated patches of ground, but the shadows remained heavy and menacing. A moment stretched into eternity as he peered into the darkness. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush made him jump back, heart pounding. Amelia, come here. She slipped closer, fear written all over her face. What is it? It's too quiet, Jake whispered, his breath quickening. Whatever it is, it's not out in the open. Jared strained to hear, all of them on edge. Then, from the depths of the trees, a shadow emerged, moving with stealth. It paused, a sleek form barely visible in the faint light. Jake's breath caught in his throat. It looked like a dog, but something about its posture screamed danger. What do we do? Amelia asked, her eyes darting between the two boys, desperate for guidance. Jake felt the weight of her fear crashing over him like waves on the shore. We need a distraction, he said, thinking quickly. Jared, you stay here. Amelia, come with me. We'll create a noise and draw it away. Amelia's eyes widened in shock. No way. That's too risky. Do you want to wait here and let it find us? He countered, his tone sharper than he intended. Amelia bit her lip, nodding reluctantly. Jake grabbed an old lantern from the table and a stick from the floor, the rough texture grounding him. All right, stay low. We move on my count. He counted slowly, building tension. Then, with a deep breath, they pushed open the rickety door, the old wood creaking like a warning. The chill of the night hit them, and the shadows shifted unsettlingly. Now! Jake shouted, hurling the stick into the trees. The sound of cracking branches echoed through the woods, and the shadowy figure darted toward the noise. Come on! Jake urged, taking Amelia's hand as they dashed around the corner of the cabin, hearts pounding, adrenaline coursing through their veins, but as they crept further from safety, Jake's thoughts spiraled. What if this was all for nothing? What if confronting the Duke only led to more danger? And yet, he had to keep fighting for Amelia, for their future. They made it around the back of the cabin, hidden in the thick bushes, panting. "Do you see it?" Amelia whispered, her voice shaking. "No, but we can't stay here too long." Just as he spoke, the growls returned, an angry chorus, mixing with the howls of wind. Whatever was out there was becoming restless. "Jake, I can't," Amelia started, but determination hardened her eyes. "No. We can't give up. We just need a way out." They exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. In this moment of deepest uncertainty, they recognized a stubborn flame within each other that would not be extinguished. They had faced shadows before. This wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming their choices, their lives, and their love. Just then, a rustle drew Jake's attention back to the trees. Fear tightened around his heart, but he knew they couldn't back down now. "What if we don't make it?" she said, the vulnerability in her voice stripping him bare. "We will," he promised fiercely, even as doubts clawed at his mind. Their grasp of hope imploded into a reality where danger could strike at any moment. Maybe the true fight was still ahead. "Look." Amelia pointed toward a path through the woods squeezing between thick trees. "Do you see a way out?" he asked, grasping the hope she embodied. She nodded, uncertainty still clouding her eyes. "We have to go now." But before they could move, a chilling howl pierced through the night, echoing off the trees. They were not just fighting against the Duke, they were fighting for their lives. As the shadows closed in, Jake's heart beat fiercely in his chest. Their next move would define everything. With one last deep breath, he took Amelia's hand once more. "Let us go." But just as they turned to run, a figure appeared at the edge of the shadows, blocking their way. And in that moment, an unthinkable betrayal became painfully clear. Would this be the end of their fight for freedom, or the beginning of an even greater struggle? The figure stepped forward, and a wave of dread washed over Jake. It was Samuel, his shadowy grin sharp against the silver light of the moon filtering through the trees. "Did you really think you could escape?" he taunted, his eyes glinting with malicious glee. "No." Amelia gasped, clutching Jake's hand tighter. But Jake felt a surge of defiance within him, like the flickering flame of a candle daring to stand against the storm. "Samuel," Jake said, his voice steady, "if you think you can intimidate us, you're dead wrong." Every word was a vow, a promise that they wouldn't back down. The shadows shifted, a group of men materializing behind Samuel, their faces masked with a mix of amusement and menace. Jake's heart raced. They were outnumbered, but he couldn't let fear take root. "What's the plan now, Jake?" Amelia whispered urgently, scanning their surroundings as if the trees might conjure an escape. "Just trust me," he replied, determination lacing his words. He let his instinct guide him. "We're not playing your game, Samuel. You're not in control here." Samuel frowned, but there was a flicker of intrigue in his eyes. "Is that so? You think you hold any power in this situation?" He took a step closer, and Jake felt the urge to retreat wash over him. But he stood firm. As Samuel moved to taunt them further, Jake could feel the energy shifting, the other men seeming unsure, hesitant. "This isn't just about titles or bloodlines. It's about standing for what's right," Jake said, channeling every ounce of courage. "You might have the Duke, but we have love, and that's worth fighting for." Amelia's eyes widened, a mixture of horror and unwavering belief, as she echoed, "We're willing to fight for our future, whether you like it or not." The air thickened with tension. For a split second, everything hung in balance, the hope of their love colliding with the bitter threat of Samuel's power. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the echoes of their defiance. Samuel's confidence faltered just a touch as he took another step back, wary now. "You think this is just about you? The Duke has a legacy to uphold, and he won't be pitted against you lightly," he warned, although his voice lacked its earlier taunt. "Then let us speak to him," Jake suggested, not waiting for Samuel's response. "Let us put all this on the table. If you want to convince him that I'm unworthy, let him decide for himself." A flicker of surprise flashed across Samuel's face, confusion threading through him. You think talking your way through this will solve everything? Communication is the key. Amelia turned to Jake, eyes ablaze with determination. We can show him we're serious. Together. The smile slipped from Samuel's face, the tension was palpable. Staring at Jake, Samuel weighed his options, the internal struggle visible in his narrowed eyes. Was it possible that they had struck a nerve? Fine, he spat, grudgingly backing down. You think you can convince him? You will face the consequences if you fail. Better to face challenges than to cower in fear, Jake shot back, feeling stronger now, emboldened by Amelia's unwavering presence by his side. Prepare for the storm, Samuel warned, taking a step back, rallying his men. You may be brave, but bravery without sense is foolishness. The men melted back into shadowed darkness, leaving Jake and Amelia standing amidst the fading echoes of danger. A wave of relief washed over them, but uncertainty lingered. Do you really think the Duke will listen? Amelia asked softly, gripping Jake's hand a little tighter. Only one way to find out, Jake replied, looking deep into her eyes. We have to face this together. With renewed purpose, they turned toward the path that led back to the mansion. The road ahead remained uncertain, but the storm inside them had shifted. They were no longer just fighting for themselves, they were carving a future free from the burdens of titles and legacy. Hand in hand as they approached the grand entrance of the Duke's estate, the ominous mansion loomed before them. Each step inched them closer to confrontation. Would the Duke embrace the love that bound them, or would his rigid traditions threaten to tear them apart? Whatever happens in there, remember what we stand for, Jake murmured, his voice resolute and steady. We're in this together. Amelia nodded, courage reflecting in her eyes. The door swung open with a creak, revealing the Duke at the far end of the grand hall, flanked by his advisors. Father, please. We need to talk, Amelia's voice rang out, breaking through the tense silence. The Duke's gaze met theirs, a storm brewing behind his composed exterior. As the weight of their love hung in the air, Jake felt a fierce determination igniting within him. This was their moment. Let us show you what love can accomplish, Jake declared, stepping forward with Amelia beside him. Whatever challenges awaited them, they were ready to face it together. In that moment, a glimmer of hope flickered in the air, illuminating the path ahead. They each held tightly to the vision of the future they wished to create. Courage and love would guide them through the storm, and so, they stood together, ready to reclaim their story come what may. This is the moment everyone has been waiting for. If you felt the emotional intensity and growth of Jake and Amelia's love, you must subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for love that breaks barriers. Comment below your reactions and feelings about how their story ended, and what you think will happen next. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. It might just light the spark they need in their own lives. You need to be part of this community that champions love and courage.